Radha Madhava Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Hari Gopi Jana Ballabha Hari Kishoranandana Vajajanarangana Kishoranandana Vajajanarangana Yiravachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Vairadi Madhava Kunjabihari Vairadi Madhava Kunjabihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 4, text 17. Mantreshu Mam Vai Upahuya Yat Tvam Akuntita Akanda Sada Atma Bodha Prishchehe Prabho Mugdaha Apramataha Tat Naha Manaha Mohayati Eva Deva Mantreshu Mamba Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Kanda Sadadma Bodha Riche Prabodh Mugda Eva Pramaktas Tano Mano Mohayateva Deva Mantreshu Mamba Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Kanda Sadatma Bodha Riche Prabho Mukta Eva Pramatas Ano Mano Mohayatva Jivam Deva Mantreshu Mamba Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Kanda Sadatma Bodha Riche Prabho Mugda Eva Pramata Tano Mano Mohayativa Deva
Mantreshu mangva upahoya yatram. Akuntita kanda sadatma bodha. Priche prabho mugda iva pramatas. Tanno mano mohayati vadeva.
Mantreshu manva upahuya yatam Akuntita kanda sadatma bodha Ichche prabhu mugdaiva pramatas Tanno mano mohayati vadeva
Mantreshu mamva upahuya yatvam akuntita kanda sadatma bodhaha Krische prabho mugda hiva pramatas Tano mano mohayati vadeva
Mantreshu mamba upahoya yatvam akuntita kanda sadatma bodha Prishche prabho mugda iva pramatas Tanno mano mohayati vadeva
Shimanva upayuyatvam akunchitit kanda saratma bodha Vijay Prabhu Mukta Eva Parmatas Tano Manomo Yativa Deva Yati Viva
unfair. Mantreshu in consultations. Mom unto me. I as either Upapuya by calling, yet as much as Tvam, your lordship, Akuntita, without hesitation, Akunda, without being separated, Siddha, eternally, Atma, the self, Bodha, intelligent, which Che asked, Oh, my Lord, Mugda, bewildered, Eva, as if it were so, Apramataha, although never bewildered. That's that, Naha, our, Naha, mind, Mohayati, bewilders, Eva, as it is so, Deva, O my Lord. Translation. O my Lord, the eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to knowledge. Thus, you are sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation, as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered. And this act of yours
Uddhava was never actually bewildered, but he says that all these contradictions appear to be bewildering. The whole discussion between Krishna and Uddhava was meant for the benefit of Maitreya, who was sitting nearby. The Lord used to call Uddhava for consultation when the city was attacked by Jarasandha and others, and when he executed great sacrifices as part of his routine royal work as Lord of Dwaraka. The Lord has no past, present, and future because he is unhampered by the influence of eternal time, and thus nothing is hidden from him. He is eternally self-intelligent. Therefore, his calling for Uddhava to give him enlightenment is certainly astonishing. All these actions of the Lord appear to be contradictory, although there is no contradiction in the routine activities of the Lord. Therefore, it is better to see them as they are and not attempt to explain them.
Because trying to explain them, unless one is fortunate enough to be able to understand properly, will become bewildering for everyone. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami says that one should not hear the topics of Krishna as spoken by a non-devotee, even though they're about Krishna. Krishna is compared to milk. Milk is very sweet, nice, nourishing. But if there's poison in the milk, having touched the lips of a serpent, the milk causes poisonous effect. So we don't want to hear from non-devotees. Non-devotees means those who are too much involved in material affairs, material activities, simply as the goal of life, trying to enjoy their senses and mind. Or the impersonalists are also not considered devotees because they don't understand Krishna. They also Avishuddha Buddha, their intelligence is not purified. Brahmadaksha Vimuktimaninas. Tvayasta Bhavad Avishuddha Buddha. Because they have not achieved that state of devotional service, therefore they cannot understand the Lord. And they think themselves liberated, but actually they're not. Whereas a person who's actually liberated, he doesn't think of himself as liberated. He doesn't advertise that now he's in mukta, he's a pure devotee and liberated. He doesn't claim that. He takes a humble position. I'm just the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And that's sufficient for me. He doesn't need any other title or any other recognition. There's nothing higher than to be recognized as the servant of the servant of Krishna. So, understanding Krishna's pastimes, here Krishna, Buddha is saying, you know everything. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You don't need to ask me anything, but yet you did so. And he said it's bewildering to him, but actually, as Prabhupada indicates, he was doing this for the benefit of Maitreya primarily. Because Maitreya was not on the same level as Uddhava. Uddhava's position is very advanced. Srila Sanatana Goswami describes that in his Priya Bhagavatamrita. Very, among all the Yadavas, there's all those Yadavas are great devotees, but out of all of them, the one that's considered the topmost is Uddhava. And the gopis appreciated that he was so advanced. When they saw him in Vrindavan, they were immediately reminded of Krishna because he looked almost exactly like Krishna. He was so absorbed in Krishna's service that he received the liberation of having bodily features almost exactly as Krishna. And so they knew he must be very advanced. Otherwise, how could he get to look like that? And they entrusted themselves to hearing from him. He brought letters, at least in the Bhagavatam it describes, he brought a letter for Srimati Radharani. And Gargasmita describes that many other letters were also brought. And Uddhava gave those out to the appropriate devotees. Krishna is very merciful. He always gives everyone, he rewards them according to their degree of surrender. So sometimes it may appear not to reward everyone equally. That's all right, because he has to reciprocate with each devotee. And he even told the gopis that there's no one who has a better level of service than you. Your service is simply beyond my ability to repay it. So please be satisfied with your own good qualities. He didn't feel there was any way he could reciprocate their love because it was so great. And Uddhava was given the opportunity to perform this great service. Ostensibly, Lord Krishna wanted to relieve the anxiety or the displeasure that the gopis were feeling due to his separation. Because Krishna had assured them that he would come back to Vrindavan right after he finished handling some business in Mathura, such as killing Kamsa. But he did that, but he didn't come back. So they were just feeling separation. And devotees like Uddhava tried to encourage Krishna to go there or to do something because these gopis were about to die. It appeared. They stopped eating, and they stopped acting. So it was tragic. No one likes to see someone give up their body, and especially these great devotees. So Uddhava was praying, Lord, we need to do something, otherwise they won't be able to exist anymore. In the Nectar of Devotion, Sri Rupa Goswami describes some of these incidents. He says one gopi like Lalita or Vishaka were very, very close, intimate friends of Radharani. They went to Krishna and said, you know that Radharani, she's grinding her face and doing all these things. She can't live without you. Doesn't that make you feel something? And And she said, she might even be dead by now. I'll go back and check in by placing a cotton swab in front of her nose, because that way you can tell the nostrils. They pick up you give a little air out. So she said, if I find that she's still living, I'll chastise her. This is the state of affairs that things were in Vrindavan when Uddhava came. So Uddhava tried to console them. He's not bewildered. He understands everything. But just to make the Lord's pastimes sweeter, they're always getting sweeter. They always increase. In the material world, if you watch a movie or a play, a drama 1 time, 2 times, 3, 6 times, you get a little bored. You think, well, I've seen enough. And maybe more, maybe someone, I know one gentleman who's very attached to one particular movie. He went to see it, I don't know how many times. He liked it very much, but it can't go on forever like that. It doesn't. At a certain point, it decreases. And one will not be able to find pleasure in that activity anymore. You have to find something new. But Krishna's pastimes are so transcendental that Sada, the word used here, eternally, they don't change. And he knows everything, past, present, and future. So there's nothing Krishna doesn't know. So he didn't want anyone to think of him that he might think he's greater than Krishna. He's making that point very clear. I do not know what Krishna knows. He knows everything. I don't know. But still he's asking for my opinion. So in his role as the Mantri, like the primary advisor to the king, he would go on all in the Garga Samhita, it's described very elaborately that Uddhava was the one chosen to go out as the prime minister for Pradyumna and Aniruddha on their campaigns of the horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha. And he was there making the decisions. He's also a great fighter, but primarily he's there for just making the proper decision what to do and how to present it to the other side so that there'll be proper situations. In other words, he's so expert that he knows when to fight, when not to fight, when to make peace. Sometimes it's described that when the other side, Chanakya Pandit says, if one finds himself up against an opponent that's greater than him, then better this is time to make a truce. And that was also advised to the demigods. The demigods normally they're more powerful than the demons, the asuras, the daityas, but on one particular occasion, because the demigods had offended their spiritual master Brihaspati, Indra was not as powerful as he normally is because of that offense. And so they were told to make a truce. And it was all, Lord planned it out, that they would make a truce and they'd go on a venture together to churn the ocean of milk. And then so many wonderful things would come out of that ocean of milk, but ultimately there would be a nectar of immortality. So they were supposed to do this together as friends and share the nectar as friends and relatives. And that's a long story, but sometimes the advisor will advise, make a truce now. Later, when you're strong, then you can attack again. But now, if you try to fight now, you'll be defeated. So, Buddha was a great devotee, and we're interested in following in the footsteps of these great personalities, which is, we can see the qualities, Nanda Maharaj, Uddhava. Uddhava was a friend on the same level. They were like best friends. They grew up together, they looked the same. Families were almost the same. They're cousins, if I'm not mistaken. Their fathers were related, so very close. Any questions or comments?
Me? Oh, they had.
Hare Krishna. I'm wondering what the difference between an incarnation, like a direct incarnation of Krishna, and a demigod is.
Demigods are living entities, ordinary living entities. And even like ourselves, we're jiva souls. We can become demigods if we're qualified, and if Krishna agrees to that. As far as an incarnation, there's 6 major types that are described in the Nectar, or Chaitanya Charitamrita especially. And Leela avatars, and Yuga avatars, mantra, Manvantara avatars, different types of incarnations. Some of them even they're living entities, but they're empowered to act as the Lord. Even though they're ordinary living entities, in other words, the Lord can deputize, so to speak. Just like in the Westerns we used to see, if the sheriff didn't have enough members of the army or the police, so he deputized some others to help.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, do you mind repeating the last thing that Maharaj said? The very last thing.
He said that there's like we notice in like westerns, sometimes if there's like major need for some protection or something, then somebody will be deputized. I give him the badge. All right, that's you now. Protect the citizens, like that. So similarly, that's like the Shaktivesha avatar. Okay, Jagannath Prabhu. And then your question.
Can you tell me why Pradyumna wasn't considered more advanced than Uddhava? Because from what I understand, there wasn't any physical difference between Krishna and Pradyumna. So does like the physique always imply the greatness of a devotee?
We have to hear about the details of the differences and the elevation of devotees from authorized devotees. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand. So as far as we're concerned, they're all pure devotees. They're all worshipable. But Sanatana Goswami in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he gives those explanations. So now you know where to find it. As far as the likeness of the devotees form, Maharaj did mention that the gopis, just what he said, the gopis had this thought. The gopis had this thought about Uddhava, that because he looked so similar, he must be super advanced. So that's at least one example of that. Your question, Prabhu?
It was about the gopis, because we hear how they weren't so learned, but they clearly had an understanding of the way that things worked when they saw Uddhava and his characteristics that resembled Krishna. They knew how he was, very exalted, very special to the Lord. So to say they're not learned, I feel like isn't entirely accurate. So I'd like to know like a little bit more about like where they stand, and like they just don't have worldly intelligence, or
Yeah, it's not, they're the most learned because they know Krishna the most intimately. They know Krishna so much, they can drive him crazy. So that means that they know him on a very intimate level, and they know him so well that they can actually make fun of him. So these are the things that are reserved for the devotees who have such love as the gopis do for Krishna. So it isn't appropriate to say they weren't learned in one sense, but in another sense, if you look historically, Krishna was born, or he appeared in this cowherd village. So according to the queens and the princesses, their education was different. The queens of Dwarka, and they make this comment, the gopis make this comment, oh, Krishna has gone to be with these wonderful society women. They're so educated and refined. And they were all trained as princesses. They were high level, socio-economically, and education was there. But they were in the village and they were milking the cows and making yogurt and butter and, village stuff. So their love is what makes them super excellent. And their ability or their willingness to surrender everything to Krishna. And even though their position in society, according to, or like compared to the queens, was already less, still, they had their families, they had their expectations, they had their children, they had their husbands. And when Krishna called for them with his flute, then they decided to literally abandon whatever social position they had, even as cowherd women, right? So that pure love and that willingness is what makes them super excellent. And like we heard Maharaj describe, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna says, he tells the gopis at one point that you'll just have to be satisfied with your own good qualities. Just kind of like a strange term. It's like, I can't repay you back for anything. I can't pay you back for your love. You have to be satisfied with yourself. Of course, Krishna does try more and 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 more infinitely to repay them. But you can see from that statement that how exalted they are. So that's real learning. That's what we hear from Gita. The real yogi, the real sage, right? The real knower of the truth. They perform devotional service, and the topmost devotees are the gopis, like that. So Maharaj mentioned here that we try to follow in the footsteps of these great souls. So basically, we just, at this point, as Srila Prabhupada said at the end of the purport, we don't have to know too much about it, really, in one sense. We just hear about it, hear about their love for Krishna. And that's basically the nectar of devotion, is just hearing all the devotees loving Krishna in their unique, perfect ways. And by appreciating more and more and more of the love of the pure devotees for the Lord, then we can become qualified to become servants of our spiritual master. And that's actually the qualification. So some devotees, they start to think like, well, I would like to be like the gopis. I want to meet with Krishna and, touch his body. I want to rest my head on his shoulder like Radharani. Or we may say, I want to make yogurt for Krishna in the spiritual world like Mother Yashoda, or I want to sing for Krishna as a bird. Very nice in one sense. It's very nice. But we have to deserve it first, or else it's called sahajiya. And then, but the principle is that there's no question of attaining those intimate relationships with Krishna if I still think I'm this body. So it's like because I've heard about Krishna and I've heard about the excellence of the gopis and things like that, then there's some spiritual desire to be like them, which is the credit for the sahajiya. But one who tries to jump, he does a disservice to Krishna and to others. He makes a distraction of devotional service. But the one who becomes a servant of the spiritual master actually becomes free from the false identification with the body and the mind. And then they are actually qualified to actually enter into higher and higher levels of devotional service. And then they will deserve to see Krishna face to face. And Krishna will put them into his pastimes exactly perfectly according to their heart's desire. Not that when I'm contaminated and I'm like super lusty and gross, then, I think I know what's best for me, So this is the idea. And one time, Maharaj, he chastised me about this. There's a lecture from Srila Prabhupada, and the devotees, they asked him, they said, Prabhupada, in Nectar Devotion, you say that we should follow in the footsteps of the gopis. He said, yes, but you should become free from the material contamination first. So I repeated that to Maharaj, and I thought it was very nice. And then he said, you want to become free from material contamination, you better become a servant of your spiritual master. Like that. So I was thinking, oh, it's easy to become free. I can jump to purification. But Maharaj said at the beginning of class very beautifully, the pure devotees, they don't think that they're advanced. The pure devotees, they don't think that they're free from Maya. Actually, they're very much open about it, how they're actually fallen and contaminated. And it's not a fake thing, it's a real thing. Because they can see what qualities the gopis have, what qualities Uddhava has, what qualities Pradyumna has, what qualities Arjuna has. They say, what do I have? No, I got contamination. So those are some points. Thank you very much, devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, Mataji has something else?
Hare Krishna. I guess just to add with the Sahajias point is it Sahajias basically to believe that, in practicing Krishna consciousness, it should only be but easygoing and love and comfortable and simple and fun all of the time.
Well, specifically, the difference between the devotees who are fully absorbed in following the orders of the spiritual master, they actually have fun. They actually are blissed out all the time, and they're actually experiencing spiritual ecstasy. So, and if the devotees or the sahajiyas, which are a type of preliminary devotee, then they think that they want to mix in the material pleasure. So they say, I'll love Krishna when I do my kirtans, and then after I'll have illicit interactions with, other bodies, and I will do this for my mind and senses with the intoxication, and I'll do that with my money, and I'll do this with my property, like that. So they're not actually experiencing ecstasy on the spiritual platform at all. So the idea is that they're actually trying to mix the material world with the spiritual world. And the sign that they're not on the spiritual platform yet is that they actually have to do material activities to get pleasure. But this tendency that you mentioned, we want it to be easy and, so many nice things about it, comfortable and everything. That's the idea, is that it's like, I know I'm supposed to chant Hare Krishna and follow the orders of the spiritual master, but my mind is not happy with it. So I better smoke first, then I can do it. Right? Or I better do this first, or I better have it this way, or I better have it that way for my mind and body. And this is material. Rather, we know spiritual means ahaituki, which means without any other motivations rather than to please. So we're so lucky because, Srila Prabhupada has not asked us to do unnecessary austerities, which actually debilitate the mind and body and are too austere. Everything that he asks us to do actually is pleasurable when you're in the mode of goodness. And that's the trick, is that if you're in the mode of goodness, it's all fun. It's all great because your tendency is for rising early. Your tendency is for cleanliness. Your tendency is for purity. Your tendency is for, study, shastra, proper interactions with others, devoting oneself to the Lord, respecting elders. But we're not in the mode of goodness. So everything that Prabhupada asks us to do is based on it's not our nature. But you can see there are some devotees and they just come out of nowhere and they're just like chanting 16 rounds, rising early, tons of service, bowing down to Prabhupada, so respectful. And they're like, this is amazing because they're more into the mode of goodness. That's why these pious Indians and things like that, they're special because the program in this material world, which Prabhupada has recommended, is a mode of goodness program with a spiritual, it's completely spiritual, but there's that backdrop to it, So it's the lifestyle. If we want to move really fast towards advancing in devotional service, then it's favorable to kind of have that mode of goodness nature. So we work on it, we practice, and by association with the spiritual master and following the orders, we become purified. And then we can actually rise up in the modes gradually. And there's many stories about this. The devotees that keep trying, they're never envious of the instructions of the spiritual master. They become so purified. There's amazing transformational stories in ISKCON from devotees that were super down and out, modes of ignorance, mode of passion, like anything. And by following the order of the spiritual master, they gradually elevate in nature. Then they like to study, they like to read, they like to serve, they like to be humble. Before, everything opposite. So, was that okay? Okay. Thank you, devotees, for tolerating me. Hare Krishna. Disturbing someone, problem? Did I disturb someone? No one. I thought that maybe some.
Sorry. Sorry.